Hello everyone, this is a game from round 5 ChessDojo Open tournament. It's a classical tournament with 1 hour on the clock and 30 minutes increment. This game it can also be played in longer time intervals at 90 minutes. In this game I am playing against an opponent of 1900 rating on Chess.com, and we were playing an interesting game in Kan Sicilian. That is what I usually play against e4. And Kan Sicilian is an variant of Sicilian that is signified by this a6 move. It's similar to Najdorf, but of course there are differences. The idea of a6, like in Najdorf, is to block this b5 square. In Sicilians, if white is allowed, he often likes to play knight to b5 and then have ideas to jump here, which is very nasty, and if ever this is allowed, then black has to give up his dark square bishop, and in the game continuation white is attacking on dark squares, and this usually gives white large advantage. Kan Sicilian basically handles this immediately by playing a6, and this square is unavailable for white. White have many other options. He doesn't have to go for this idea, and most played moves here are knight to c3, c4, or bishop move like any of these. Each of these variants lead to somewhat different structures, and for players playing against, as black playing against white here, they should know at least a bit about each of these lines, because there are quite a few traps. In this game, my opponent went with knight c3. I developed my queen to c7. That's a typical move. Main idea of the move is to protect e5 square, so that after his move I can basically develop his knight, which I could do here. But in this position I decided to change it up a bit. This is standard move, and the black players often attack this knight. It's not a pin, but it's a bit annoying move, and what I have the opportunity here to do is to attack this knight, which is disconnected. That's one of the drawbacks of bishop to d3 move. The move is good because it prepares kingside attack. This bishop will eye h7, and white in these variants will want to play e5. So the bishop is well positioned, but it has a slight downside at the moment, and I decided to use it by attacking the knight. He has to go back, or there's no really good way to defend it. This is possible, but I won't go into that now. It can be tricky. There could be traps like this. Okay, but he decided to go back, and I went back. And this is a slightly unusual maneuver, but there are high-level games played in this variant. For example, Vasily Topalov versus Peter Svidler played this. Those are 2700 rated players. So the idea behind this is to chase away the knight to less active square. I could have immediately played the bishop to e7, but then the knight would stay on this super great square. By playing it this way, the knight has retreated, and the bishop is still on e7. So this is a nice move order trick. Okay, so the opponent went with a5, which is, I marked an interesting move, and it's quite a good move because it stops me from playing b5. The idea in Kan Sicilian is often to play b5. There is further idea of b4, winning some space and reducing activity of this knight, and we'll want to develop bishop to b7 and knight to c6. Another idea for black here is to play d5 if possible and break open the center. d5 is usually played when knight is already out and black needs to be ready to castle because opening the center is dangerous. So opponent plays a5, which is quite useful move for him, and I develop my knight because I can. The queen is defending the square. He castles and I play b6. b5 is not available, so I want to develop my bishop here, and I could have also played the knight. One thing that you should know here is that these Sicilians are not beginner friendly, and it's not really great idea to castle, for example, here. You may think, fine, I have castled, but then white immediately has f4 and white has attack already one move away, and we are not even close to any counterplay. That's why black often plays queenside moves and delays castling, and actually black is fine in these variations to not castle at all, because, for example, see here, okay, white has the options of playing moves like queen to g4, attacking the pawn, and variations like these are playable but not great. For example, something like this is also often played in Kan Sicilian. Okay, and well, let's continue. So I went to develop, and here the best move for white is f4 and try to attack on the king, but my opponent didn't know that, and I think he didn't know exactly how to play as white in this variation, and he blocked his own pawn, and this is, yes, it develops the queen, and it can attack on my king's side, but it's not a great move. I went with my developing move, he attacked my queen, and here I made my first mistake, and it's not too big mistake, luckily, but the case here is that I don't want to move my queen. Queen is well positioned and she needs to stay here, but it's under attack, and typical move in excuse me, typical move in Kan Sicilians is to play d6. By playing d6 we create this hedgehog structure, which is quite solid, although a bit passive. Are basically slightly backwards and behind, and white has more space. I was afraid to be passive, and I decided to go for bishop to d6, and it's not the best move for a very specific reason. That reason is far from obvious. I was looking at this move a few minutes, almost 5 minutes, and I didn't see anything bad, and so neither did my opponent. He played the right move, which is capture. Of course, has to have to capture, and he went with rook to d1 after a long think. And I marked it as a mistake because I thought it was a mistake, but it's actually the best move in the position. It's interesting that after I moved back, I want to keep my queen on this diagonal. It's very important to stop the pawn. White went back. So he basically recognized his, let's call it, mistake. So he moved the rook twice. But the thing is that if we turn on stockfish in this position, I analyzed with and without the engine, I checked stockfish, of course, and it turns out that in this position, since white already screwed up his plans on king's side, stockfish wants to attack with a5. And here, white doesn't really have good defense. The best is to castle, and after capture, and something like this, black cannot stop this move, and the bishop has no squares. So white has here a strategic win, exchanging this side wave knight for a strong bishop. It's not possible to retreat the bishop because this fork wins the pawn. So this is the line that would give white some advantage. It would be winning with precise play, but on this level it doesn't mean anything really. My opponent didn't spot that. He moved the queen to h3, making these threats. Now he has here a checkmate threat, and I made a mental note to myself to always watch for this e5 move and prevent him from dislodging my knight. Knight is vital defender. So I calculated that knight c6 works. I'm defending this square. d6 is also a good move defending the square. He centralized his rook after a think, and it's a great move because I was watching and I was looking here and trying to play d5, but it simply doesn't work. This position, it's plus 3.5 for. I don't want to go into variations, it will take too long. But basically, at no point I had the chance to play d5 break. For that reason, I decided to go for d6, turn off the engine. And this is the typical Kan Sicilian structure. Black is fine here, and position is about equal. Here, white needs to attack with f4, and it will lead to an interesting game, while black will try to counterattack in the middle when opportunity presents itself. But my opponent didn't understand those plans, and he went with rook lift, which is really not a good idea. Here there is no way he can break through with pieces. What could happen is that he will lose some piece because white has really good counter chances here. I decided to use this opportunity to eliminate one attacker. He cannot retreat back because I'll just pick up the pawn. He could have maybe sacrificed it, but he moved his rook, which is kind of weird. I picked up the bishop, and I expected him to take with the pawn, and the game continues. But he went with the rook takes. Maybe he was eyeing this pawn, I presume. But now I have knight takes here, and the knight is defending the pawn. So I was happy that I spotted this, and I calculated this for a few minutes. And I noticed that after this variant, I actually have this very strong move, and now I have this nasty fork, and it's actually very hard to defend for him. I thought this was already good for me, although he has this move, which holds everything. But there are also back rank issues, and basically I can trade everything now. And here, even if white doesn't lose anything, currently there is checkmate threat. I'm happy to trade everything down because I'm a pawn up. I'm on the central pawn. So this is completely winning for black. Apparently he saw this because he didn't take the pawn, but he went to attack my queen, and here I was very happy for the position. I thought it was winning. I just need to consolidate a bit, and I relaxed. Earlier I was very tense playing this structure. So I was considering where to move my queen and decided that I'd like to have it active here and outside of the pawn chain. So I went with queen to a7. Note that I'm defending this pawn. Okay, but I planned to play the rook here and here. But what I miss here, and my opponent quickly found, is that this queen to e3 is double attack and a very strong move. And now I cannot defend both of my pieces. Here I had to admit my mistake, and after I think there was nothing better than to just retreat back and admit mistake. I also considered, so he took the pawn and now we are equal. I also considered to take the pawn, but as far as I could calculate, it was bad for me because basically he breaks through and he's very active, and my queen has no good squares. The pawn is simply not worth it. The bishop could also be trapped. I don't know exact variation. I'll check with Stockfish. Yeah, basically Stockfish says white is taking this pawn and white is better. So I didn't went for this, but I spotted that I have the opportunity to threaten checkmate, so he has to trade, and now I'll get the open file. And I went for this, and it was quite a good decision from my side. He pushed away my bishop. I kept it on diagonal. Playing bishop on this side is simply not a good idea. It will come under attack. Bishop is weak here. So I went with bishop to g6. I was also considering bishop to f5, but it's again, it could get attacked. It's not a great place for the bishop. I'm controlling this square, that's important, so he cannot really take control of the line yet. He went here, avoiding checks. And at this position, it's about equal, and I was considering what to do. I was considering move like this, but I couldn't play it currently because I would lose the pawn, and he's actually very nicely controlling these squares. This knight is helping a lot. So this sideway knight, which was useless for most of the game, is now proving like quite a good defender, and at what point it could be used as an attacker, who would say. So I went with h5, trying to create some space. Also, I want to move my pawns and to start moving them if possible if we trade queens, so I can make a pass pawn. I have pawn majority on this side, while he has pawn majority on my queen side. I was actually thought I could lose this game even later because his pawns are simply faster and his pieces are here. He went to centralize his queen. That's very annoying move. He's not threatening this way. And I had nothing better but to try to force the trade, and he accepted. This would create a weakness, so I went with rook takes. And here I spotted that he has this check, and I thought I was close to losing because my king is so far away, and he'll move the pawns. It may be hard to play for black, but Engine thinks it's a draw. He luckily didn't check me. He went to attack the pawns, so I moved the pawn, initiated a trade, and he centralized his king, which is a good move, but he missed check again, so I went on and tried to centralize my king. I also spotted this idea. I wanted to play e5 to block his access, but I didn't have the time, so he prevented it. I went back in. And here, at this point, I pressured him heavily on clock. He had only 2 minutes, but there was 30 seconds increment. But the issue is that we were already playing more than 2 hours, and I had to finish the game. My wife was pressuring me to finish the game, and I couldn't see a way to win, and it's actually a drawn position. And something like, what did I play? Something like this always ends up with checks. He retreated back. I tried to centralize my king. The lines that I was trying to calculate by moving pawns, in each case, white had some responses, and his king was always faster to the middle, to the center than mine, and I simply saw no win. Actually, with bad move, I thought I could lose because one of these pawns will be passed pawn, and I was afraid that I would lose the game. So here, I, again, as I said, tried to pressure him the clock. So I started the only plan that I had by moving my pawns, and also know that it's nice to have pawns on dark squares so my bishop can be more active. That's a good idea here. But the downside is now that I was afraid of these tactics here because it was hard for me to defend my pawns. He went with the check, and that's why, as I said, I was afraid of this move because I thought after this rook I cannot win. Rook move, rook check. But what I missed, maybe I was tired or was pressure because I tried to finish the game. I simply didn't spot that I can block the check, and this maybe is not winning, but I could try to win it because he was so low on time. I decided to rather stay on the d file blocking his entrances, and he went with check. I kept on the line, and he started repeating. I thought for a bit more and just decided to accept the draw. That was the game. It was quite interesting. ChessDojo for September is finished. There will be October tournament. Unfortunately, my last round in the September tournament was cancelled. My opponent couldn't play. So for a bit, this is the last game from ChessDojo. And I think I'll make new videos as soon as the new tournament starts. Thank you for watching, and I hope I see you.